The town of Wareham closed the year 2018 with a historical landmark. On December 21st, Verlife, a medical retail marijuana company in the town, had opened its first recreational marijuana store, setting precedents for the retail marijuana business in Wareham. Also in that same year, during the fall town meeting, Wareham residents voted by 81% in favor of a zoning law by change at a 7.2-acre site on Elm Street, formerly known as the Tremont Nail Factory. The town referendum came with the incentive of a potentially $2.4 million deal that may potentially help rejuvenate the decade-and-a-half abandoned town-owned site. Now, a month into the new year, Verlife still operates their recreational retail marijuana store on Main Street, Wareham, and the town officials boast that the potentially $2.4 million deal for Wareham will soon come to fruition. So here is the question. Is the town looking for its own golden goose? And is part the answer? Joining me in the studio is the chairman of the Wareham Board of Selectmen, Mr. Alan Slavin, here to help us digest the future and the prospects of the retail marijuana business in the town of Wareham. Welcome, Alan.
Pleasure to be here as always.
So you're here to help us digest the retail recreational marijuana and the prospects that the industry may bring to the town of Wareham. I would like us to start with Verlife. May you please remind our viewers, remind us why this town voted to legalize or recreational marijuana in the town of Wareham?
Well, basically we had approximately 57% of the population during the ballot question vote for it. So that basically put that in place, and we did go to a town meeting and did a zoning for for the medical, and that was the first piece, which was the Verilife group, and then we added, of course, the areas for retail as well as manufacturing for locations as well. The Verilife location, of course, was done for medical, and at the time that was done, there was no retail regulations in place. So a lot of people question why Verilife is where it is and how come they have retail there, because of traffic, parking, etc. And the simple answer is it was never planned as a retail location, really, because the rules and regulations weren't in place, because the Cannabis Control Commission hadn't dialed it in yet. None of us knew that the medical marijuana facilities were going to have first shot at retail as well, which was another thing that got changed as they went on. This whole process with the Cannabis Control Commission is just a complete ongoing thing where it's like a living entity that keeps changing. The original ballot question, just so everybody understands, was written by the industry, not by the state, not by the town, or not by individuals. So when they wrote the ballot question, it was to favor whatever they wanted to do. Because in that ballot question, it has also the idea of delivery. If you say you're here in Wareham, and let's just say next door Bourne says no marijuana retail sales, the facility in Wareham can deliver to Bourne or to any other town. So that kind of makes it why, if you vote no, you're still going to have marijuana in your town. And the other piece is the social clubs, which is on the question right now, which was supposed to come in November. They've delayed what they're going to do till February, and we don't have any regulations in place as to where social clubs can be located or not. So that's another issue that we're going to be dealing with.
We get 3% taxes from them.
We get, from Verilife, we have two different things. You have to remember that we have two components.
The medical and
the medical. And the medical is done with a host agreement, which I think is $100,000 the first year, and I believe it goes up to either $125,000 or $150,000 over the 3 years. That's our host agreement there. And there's also some other considerations of funds they contribute to the town. I don't have the exact what they are because they're kind of negotiated, to do a few things. They may give us money for a certain project or something. The other part of the business there, which is part of the Pharmacana/Verilife group, is the actual retail. The retail, the way the state has set that up, is that we get 3% of the gross sales of retail marijuana sales from the facility up to $10 million in sales. That's the cutoff of how this was written up, by the state.
$10 million.
Okay. Which means the maximum income we can get per year from a retail operation is $300,000. And we have 2 other retail units approved for. Well, one is in process down on Route 6 and 28. If you know where the Sears Roebuck is down there, I think it's Jordan Plaza, if I remember right, the building. And if you look at the right-hand side of that building, you can see where they're actually working on getting a retail store set up there. They have to get their approvals from the state, same as the other one. It takes a long time. And we also have the other one, the industrial park. So when those 2 come on board, I expect the traffic issues to even subside even more because they're easier to get to, and I don't think the issues will be as much. I think the real question is, when we have 3 stores, will we do more business than if we had 1? The answer would be yes. But each store probably is going to do less than they could do if they're all by themselves.
And they're not only opening here in Wareham. I believe up to this point, there are about 8 stores that have already opened in Massachusetts.
I think it's either 5 or 6, but there's a couple coming online this week. Okay. You know, and I think you're going to see over the next month or so the numbers increase substantially because a lot of them were slow getting the paperwork in. And again, they took anyone who was a medical facility and gave them priority.
So with that 30% that we get from the gross sales from the recreational side of Verlife, how much money have we made so far? They've been open for a few weeks now. They opened on December 21st last year. Do we know?
No.
Can we predict how much they made?
Not really, because we don't, you know, we know that the maximum number of people they could handle in a day was 800. And I think they were limiting, and again, I was away for quite a while in December, so I don't have any real details, but I think they were limiting the amount of product you could buy to 1 ounce at the time as far as the actual marijuana. I don't know about the edibles and stuff, but the bottom line was, you know, they probably could purchase between $300 and $400. So if you take, say, $300 just as a number, which could be wrong, times 800 people, that's your gross per day. And you take 3% of that, assuming they hit that 800. I think it's dropped. I think the volume as far as number of cars from where it started over at the Water Whiz to where it went to Tremont Nail, I think the cars per day is dropped down somewhat.
Okay.
So I don't know. See, they also had a problem. They had help come in the first week from the corporate headquarters and stuff, and those people left after a week. So the reason the hours changed wasn't because of traffic or anything else. It was because they didn't have staff to handle doing it. So they were open like 12 to 5 for retail. And I spoke to Shelley when I got back just to ask how things were going, and she doesn't go home till like 9 o'clock at night.
Do we know when those numbers will come? Do we know when?
Quarterly.
Quarterly, okay. Yeah. So apart from the 3% gross in sales for the recreational side, do we have any more income coming from Verlife for recreational marijuana business? Are we getting any, are they renting the building from us?
No, they own the building.
They own the building, so we're not leasing the building to them, so that is out of the way.
As of right now, they pay for the parking program that they have, the shuttles. They pay.
But they paid for what Water Whiz.
Now they're paying for Tremont Nail.
Tremont Nail.
So I thought I heard a figure of $2,500 a month for the parking facility.
So now, this time we're benefiting. That's coming to us.
That comes to us.
Tremont. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that money there would go into the Tremont Nail for any work that needs to be done at Tremont for making it better or whatever else.
Oh, so that's talking about Tremont Nail, and we'll dive into Tremont Nail even more into details later on. But I thought anything that is made at Tremont Nail is going to go to the general fund.
Not really, because some of the money that comes in, you know, like for the Organa brands, there's a portion of that money will go for the redevelopment of Tremont Nail and stuff, and some of it may go to the cost of the town having the facility.
It's a set amount?
I think there is, but I have to go look for it. I can't give you something, I'm not positive of the numbers, but I think there's a percentage breakout somehow on that, you know, as we go through.
Now, Verlife did have their own private security there and during opening day for that first week, and also they had Wareham police. And
they pay, that's detail which they pay for.
Now tell me how Verlife, recreational marijuana business, can pay Wareham police, because recreational marijuana is a drug under federal law.
Correct, but still the bottom line is at the end of the day, you have to make a decision for public safety and stuff, and they basically, even though they're not very happy about it, this is as far as the safety for the town, this is what's required.
So did we as a town break the law?
No. because the state of Massachusetts, the Attorney General accepts the marijuana business. I mean, the federal government could come in and arrest us all tomorrow. You
see, this is Alan. Each time you know, there's a good and bad to your statements.
I mean, it is. I mean, the federal government says marijuana business is illegal. They can't put money in the banks. So basically, you know, the state of Massachusetts, like every other state that's passed marijuana, is breaking the law as far as the federal government is concerned. But none of the attorney generals in any of the states are going to rule in favor of the federal government on this. They've all said, just do business as usual.
Business as usual.
I mean, the state of Colorado, in order to solve the money issue, has opened up their own banks. The state has to take the money in and charge a fee.
I have a question similar to that later on, but you touched upon the upcoming retail marijuana stores in the future. Do we have a time frame when they'll be coming? I
would say we probably, I can't really, it's hard to predict because the whole process is just so convoluted in how they get it done. It's what you think it's going to be 1 week and then it's a month later. I'm going to say 2 to 4 months we should have all 3 stores up operating.
2 to 3 months.
Yeah, and we probably should have the manufacturing facilities. We're still waiting, of course, for the final okay from the Attorney General for the change of the, you know, the zoning over by the Tremont nail piece. So I would say those places should be up and running in less than 6 months.
Okay, and also,
and I'm hoping the lab that we got approved is opened up shortly as well.
Verlife, part of their opening day plan was to help businesses on Main Street, especially restaurants on Main Street, to thrive or to get into that bandwagon of having new people in the town. And they were giving out discounts so people can go to Main Street and eat and use the restaurants. Do we know if businesses on Main Street were impacted in one way or another?
I know businesses were not impacted because John Walczak, our acting police chief, went to Leicester and also Northampton, but especially, you know, well, people call it Leicester, but it's really not spelled that way, and spent time with the police chief there. And that's how we found the person running the parking program because of the mess they had. That town virtually came to a stop when they opened. And John did such a great job because he went and based it on saying, we might have 4,000 or 5,000 people show up the first day. And there's no way Wareham could handle 4,000 or 5,000 people, period. So the plans he put together, of course the number was extremely lower than that. That's why everything has worked so smoothly. So there's been no impact for traffic. I don't know if there's really any, I doubt very much there was any business increase except for maybe a Wareham resident or someone close by here that bought marijuana and got some kind of a discount coupon and used it later. Because the way they work is they come in a shuttle, they come out in a shuttle, they're really not waiting around anywhere that they can walk down to Main Street and buy something. They're not parking on Main Street and waiting because they have to be at the parking lot. So I don't think that piece worked. Personally.
They meant well. Now,
it was a good gesture.
Yes. So really no impact at all, negative or positive impacts on Main Street or Main Street's culture. Do you think maybe, did we learn something from the opening day, something about Main Street, how it's designed, what we can help do to improve, things that we couldn't have noted?
No, because we had no impact traffic-wise on Main Street because there was no traffic. There may be people coming in, through Main Street down to the Waterways initially, but I think a lot of the traffic would have just gone down Route 28. And I mean, I think there was one accident, which was just somebody, taking an illegal left-hand turn, as always, and someone banged into one of those shuttle buses, wasn't probably on their phone or something, who knows. And that was it for the total. If you think about it, 2 accidents, or 1 accident, one piece there is, for the time frame and everything else, is really not unusual. I hate to say that, but that road averages 150 accidents a year. Yeah.
Okay, so moving to Tremont Nail, the Organa Brands, the Colorado-based marijuana manufacturer company, is soon to come to Wareham. That's what I'm reading. Wareham Week, Wicked Local, that's what they're reporting. Yeah. How soon are we talking about?
Well, like I say, I'm going to say that'll be, by the time they're up and operational running, we could have that in less than 6 months. They're going to come in once the zoning article of the Attorney General comes back, because it takes like 90 days once the article gets sent to them.
We are waiting to hear from the Attorney General because the town voted to remand the zoning bylaw.
Yeah, rezone the zoning area for that particular overlay area. So we voted for that. they've got to come back and get approval, which should be shortly. As far as I know, there's been no issue with it. And then when it comes back, then they can sign the contracts with Organobrands. They basically, Ken Buckland has negotiated the program. My understanding is that Organobrands is going to reskin the whole building at their cost.
You know, talk a little bit about what they have proposed, what this company has proposed.
Well, they're basically, are going to lease the building. Mm-hmm. I think the numbers are already been put out there. I don't have it at the top of my head right now.
Let's talk about numbers again. The deal could potentially worth $2.4 million a year, and that number, we arrived to that number through rent, the $184,000 a year. We are talking about the potential $300,000 a year through taxes for our town, and they mentioned $100,000 in donation, annual $100,000 in donations.
They can. I think that's not part of the host agreement, so that $100,000 donation per year may or may not happen.
May or may not happen. So
because the state may say you can't do that, not us.
The state
and not
may say.
Organobrands. The state may rule that you can't do that.
Okay, so, and also they talked about jobs. They said 50 jobs at above market pay.
Well, they're a cash business, so they can obviously pay more than a normal business.
But those jobs are not only exclusive for Wareham people, right?
No, obviously whatever the jobs they need, there's going to be certain skills required. I believe they have basically committed to trying to, hire Wareham residents only. But I'll say this again, that technically is really not a legal binding, item. It's like when we do the affordable housing projects and we say Wareham residents get first choice. When you're dealing with federal money and stuff, which we aren't here though, you can't do those things. You can't say we're going to give Wareham residents priority. You
talked about that we could collect up to $300,000 in gross sales tax, and that is not our. We did not put a cap on that. That's the state putting a cap on that.
Cannabis Control Commission.
Because that has been the major criticism regarding this deal or any retail marijuana business to come to the town. People are asking if these businesses, we voted for these businesses to come here. We voted for Organobrands to come to Tremont Nell because of the revenue. So if we're going to put a cap on the revenue, why are we doing this?
Basically, again, with the ballot question, put that in place, and people voted for the ballot question. If you spend your time and go look at Colorado, Oregon, Washington, if you look at the numbers that the state and the cities and towns get, you'll find that Massachusetts, the numbers that were accepted for here, but what the industry proposed were substantially lower, maybe as much as 50% less than those other states are getting. So we as a town, we had no say whatsoever what the numbers were going to be.
We just have to vote yes or no.
We voted yes or no. The state imposed what the max was.
Because this company, based on your research, Organobrands is not for life, right? It's a global company. So when we are talking about $300,000 a year, it's a nickel in a pool of $100 bills.
Well,
isn't it?
You have a business that basically in the industry is fighting to try and pay us or anybody as least as possible. It's just the way things work in this world, and unfortunately, we don't have any say as far as the percentage numbers go. We're limited to what we can do.
Their contract is a 5-year renewable contract.
Yep.
In that contract, what is fixed revenue and what is negotiated?
There's really no negotiated revenue in that contract. It's strictly you have a 5-year lease of the property, and you have 5 years at a max of $300,000 a year in sales for revenue income. That's what's allowed by the state to us. That's all we can do. That's the host agreement which they go through.
The company said that it's planning on processing 60 to 90 pounds of marijuana products a day.
Yep.
Okay, so I have sent an email to the company's communications officer regarding if we should be concerned with order. Did you hear about that?
No.
Okay, I see you laughing. But he came back to me, respectively declined to answer my questions.
Oh, they're not going to answer numbers.
Well, he said that their company is about to go global, so they're going to get back to me once the process is done. Should we be concerned with order? Our selectman, Peter Teitelbaum, who's also an environmental lawyer, he is very optimistic about Organa Brands. He does not seem to be concerned with odor. Should we be as confident as he?
They've already come and talked to us about how it works and how they can take care of it. So I don't think that's an issue.
Okay.
I don't expect to be an odor issue, period. Because that was discussed right from the beginning as far as what are you going to do with the odor and stuff. And they basically, it's almost like when they first put the, where I live on Oak Street, they put the new sewer system in there. Because there was nothing running through the system, we had a lot of odor coming back through the houses, out through the bathroom vents on the roof. And we were given these charcoal filters to put on there coming out, which it eliminated the odor. Once the volume of sewage was starting to go through the pipes, it all disappeared. In this case here, they're going to have the same kind of filtration system where they have to vent out, and that will take care of it.
Now, the president of Organa Brands, he had these wonderful words to share online. He said, "From the moment I set foot in Wareham, we knew it was a match. The historical Tremont Nail Factory was a key factor in the prosperity of Wareham in the past, and we look to bring that same spirit of ingenuity and know how to create a thriving business epicenter in this wonderful," he called it city, but it's a town.
That's nice PR.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, call me cynical. However, they are a business.
It's a
business.
Why
should they care how we feel? Why should they care about Wareham?
They need to express concern, and they need to work with the city or town because they need a host agreement in order to function here. I mean, if they were a normal business, they could come into any city or town, meet the zoning requirements as far as what's required, and open. There are certain businesses you can't locate in certain areas because of zoning. In this case here, because this is the marijuana industry, which is new, and there's resistance to it, because you got to remember, 43% of the town did vote no at the end of the day. So 43% of the people in Wareham are not being represented by what's happening.
Now,
so, you know, you have a business, when you come in with a business that's going to be controversial, or you're going to locate, like we have, you know, with the Dakota Partners with that 40B thing here, you've got to try and work with the town and tell them whatever you're going to tell them. And
the sweet words that the town would like to hear. Are you pleased with what he's saying? Are you buying into it?
I ignore it personally.
You ignore it, despite the normal business expectations and the annual tax revenue that we'll get from this partnership. What else will the company offer us?
Technically, they really don't have to. I mean, I expect that you'll probably see some nonprofit organizations go to these different marijuana operations and look for contributions or grants for. But I'll put some stuff out there which is really, I have no knowledge one way or the other. But I expect like the Wareham Village Association possibly to look for some money to help with some different events during the year. The Onset Bay Association does a tremendous job down in Onset. I would think that they would probably reach out. Turning Point, some of the nonprofits of food. Again, to promote the image of the company in the town, this is what I think will happen. But this is separate from the town government.
Who's going to be paying for the electricity, for water? Is that part of the rent?
It's all triple net lease rents.
It's within the rent, so they 184,000
No,
additional to that, or it's included in the rent?
My understanding is triple net means they pay for all the expenses.
They pay for, okay.
And they would pay for the EDU, whatever that's going to be. And I don't know what that's going to be because you have to figure out what's going in there, and the sewer department's going to have to come up with that one. They're going to have to look at it and figure out how many EDUs they're going to have to pay.
So they're not going to be paying the same tax, the same rate for the sewer as other businesses.
Well, they pay they pay EDUs, but they may have to pay like 10 EDUs as an example.
Oh yeah, because they're going to be a little bigger than.
Well, it depends on how much water they use and what happens with that water. Does it go into the sewer or whatever? We've had a pump in that parking lot for years, which is not really in that great a shape. So there's already been a question, who's going to pay to upgrade the pump? And my answer has been that if the pump needs upgrading because of the volume coming from Organa Brands, then Organa Brands should pay for that. If the pump is just old and worn out and normal maintenance needs to be replaced, then the sewer department has to pay for it.
So, Alan, I have this question for you. I raised this question during my intro, and that is, I know that this town is very restricted when it comes to revenues when it comes to money. We have to make major cuts. We are looking at a new elementary school. Police station would like to have a new police station.
20 new policemen.
20 new policemen. So we could use the money. And I'm wondering if people in this town, if town officials are thinking or hoping that the recreational marijuana business is going to be our golden goose.
No, because it's not enough. You're looking, if you had everything coming in at max numbers, you know, for the year, on a yearly basis, you could look at maybe say $1.2 to $1.5 million a year. A police station alone is $7 to $10 million. So just simple numbers. How many years would that be in order to pay for a police station?
It's not enough. Is there a way that we can make it enough? Should we as a town open our own recreational marijuana?
We're not allowed to, dear.
We're not allowed?
No. No.
Because I'm thinking that's the only way, right, Alan?
Of course, because it's huge profit, but the answer is no, we can't. So the answer is anybody who thinks the money from marijuana coming in is going to solve our shortage of revenue, and the shortage of revenue is based on the tax levy.
But that's how it's been sold, Alan.
No,
there are some town officials
not by
saying,
me.
Not by you, and I'm not going to name any names, but when you ask them why marijuana in this town, and they will tell you money. Well,
because it will allow us, because if we're level funded, which means you have to cut each year if that's all you get is level funding. You know, so we need some extra funding. It allows us to maintain the services we have and not lose more. That's what I expect out of it. But to sit there and say we're going to have all this money so we can have a new police station, we can have 20 new policemen who we need at least 15 anyways. We're going to have to redevelop the DECA school probably, you know, and do things with that. If we ever get commuter rail and stuff, but just all these things, all the different departments, council on aging, even, you know, there's not enough money in the pot. You're looking at $50 to $70 million of needs in this town, and if you earn an extra $1.2 million a year, I don't think I can wait 50 years for it. Because every year your needs increase. You know, your infrastructure depreciates and deteriorates every year, so every year you need that much more. I just came from a capital planning meeting, and the school was listing all these things they wanted, and it's like, there's no money for all the things you're asking for. It had nothing to do with the school either, the new school. So I mean, it's a help, you know, hopefully to stabilize a little bit so we don't go backwards.
It's like having a second job, a second part-time job.
Yeah, so
to help you fix your nails, to help you buy that lovely little blouse you've been eyeballing.
Or maybe you can afford your monthly payments on a new car. Because again, it's spread out over 5 or 6 years. So this is the issue. This is not a cure-all for Wareham's
problems.
And Wareham's problems are similar to a lot of towns simply because with Proposition 2.5, and we've talked about this before, you have a tax levy that came in 1974, and that tax levy can only go up 2.5% a year. And if you start with a very low number, which we did, you're never going to catch up because nobody ever contemplated the increase in health costs and everything else that the towns have to absorb. I mean, if you look at Marion, you look at any of the towns around us, and if you took Wareham's 9,800 homes and had the same valuation that they have, average home valuation, we would be earning anywhere from $7 to $24 million a year more in tax revenue. That would solve a lot of our problems.
Well, thank you so much, Alan, for being here in the studio.
It's always fun.
It's always fun. That was the chairman of Wareham Board of Selectmen, Mr.
Only till April.
Mr. Alan Slavin, here in the studio to help us digest what recreational marijuana business and the industry will mean to this town. So thank you for joining us, and I wish you all a wonderful day.